In this lesson, we will be working on refactoring our code. If you have a look at this main screen dot, our code base has grown significantly, right? So we need to refactor the code so that it's maintainable and readable. So the first thing that I want to refactor is this list view builder that is responsible for rendering the list view, alright? So let's create a new folder inside of this lib and name it as widgets. And let's create a new file inside of it and I'll be naming it as to-do-list.dart, alright? So let's create a stateful widget inside of it. So STF and the Flutter stateful widget. Now instead of returning this placeholder, let's return this list view builder. So click at the open bracket and we know where it ends. So let's copy this and replace this placeholder with the list view builder. And now let's import this list view from material.dart. And there are a few things that needs to be passed into this stateful widget from our main screen.dart. So the first thing that we want is this to-do list. So let's create a property in our class. As this to-do list is a list of string, so list string, and let's set the variable name as to-do list. Alright, now let's initialize it in our constructor with the required keyword. So required this.to-do list, and we don't need this const over here, so let's remove it. And now let's change this class name to something else. So Control D, select everything and name it as to-do list builder. And now this to-do list can be passed from our main screen.dart, and we cannot directly access this to-do list in stateful widget, so let's write widget.to-do list. And let's do the same for all the to-do list in this file. And we also need this update local data. So let's create a property for this as well. So void function update local data. So now let's pass this in our constructor as well. So required this.update local data. And now we are able to pass this function from main screen.dart as well. And now let's change this to widget.update local data. And now this file has no issues. So let's copy this class and use it over in our main screen.dart. So copy it, and instead of this list builder, let's replace it with our newly built class. And now let's import this class. And this class has two required arguments in constructor. So to-do list equals to to-do list of our main screen.dart. Alright. And another required argument is this update local data function, which will be the function of this file. Alright. And let's save it now. And everything is working fine in our app. So another thing that I want to refactor is the to-do list builder. So let's go inside of it. And here you can see that the show model bottom sheet is actually a function, right? So while working with widgets in Flutter, we don't want our widgets to be cluttered up with all these functions. So let's create a separate function for the show model bottom sheet. Alright. So inside of this class, let's create a void function. So void on item clicked. And inside of this function, we will be placing the logic of showing this model bottom sheet. So now let's bring this code from this on tab to our newly created function. So cut this and paste it over here. So inside of this show model bottom sheet function, there is an index that is being used. So let's get it from our function. So let's create an argument over here, required integer index. Alright. So now let's use this on item clicked function inside of this on tab of our list style. So on item clicked, and this function has this index as a required argument which will be passed from this index. Alright. So let's close it within semicolon. And now our file looks a lot cleaner because we have separated the function from the widget. Alright. And you can also write a nice comment over here to make it even more easier to read. Alright. And now our file is much cleaner and maintainable than it was before. And we can do the same thing in our main screen.dart as well, because if you see inside of this file, you can find this show model bottom sheet being used inside of this on tab. Alright. So this is being triggered when this plus icon is being clicked. So let me give you a task of separating this show model bottom sheet and create its own function around here somewhere and call that function for displaying a model bottom sheet. So get on with it. So I believe that you are able to refactor this. If not, let's get on with it now. So void, and let's name this function as show a to-do bottom sheet. So now let's move this code to our new function, cut it and paste it inside of this function. And we do not need any argument inside of it. So now let's use this function in our on tab. So if there are no argument that can be passed inside of this function, you can remove this anonymous function and provide only the function in our on tab. Alright. So now let's try adding some to-do item in our list. And everything seems to be working fine. So that's it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we will be working on further improving our app. So I'll see you at the next lesson. In this lesson, we will be working with app drawer in our app. We will have the app name and few options in our drawer. So let's navigate into the drawer of scaffold, and in this drawer child we only have this text widget, so let's remove it. So this is what I want on my drawer. So the first thing will be the app name, and then we will have couple of list items over here. And as the items will be vertically aligned, let's use a column over here. So column, and we'll have a list of children inside of it. And the first children is the container for the app name. So container. And let's provide a background color of blue gray highest intensity, and let the height be 100 pixel for now. And the child of this container will be a text widget with the text to do app. So here you can see the container with the background color. Now I want this container to occupy full width, so width equals to double dot infinity. So now it's occupying the full width. Now let's change the text color to white. So in text widget, style equals to text style and color will be colors.white. So we have this white color text over here, but I want this text to be in the center of this container, so let's wrap it within center widget. So the center widget will align the child vertically and horizontally in the center of a parent. Alright. So let's increase the height of this container a little bit. So that's about alright. And now we have this beautiful looking drawer in our app. So let's make this text a little bold. So inside of this text style we have this font weight property. Let's set it to font weight.bold. So now this drawer is looking great. And now I want some list items over here. So let's create a new child in this column. So let me create a list style widget over here. Now it is not mandatory to use this list style only inside of list.builder. You can use it anywhere whenever you want a list. Alright. So the first argument will be the title argument that will expect a widget. So text widget about me. So now we have this about me list style over here. Now I want an icon in front of it. A user icon would be great. So let's use this leading argument over here. And it also expects a widget. So icon and then icons dot. And if you want to search for a specific icon, you can navigate into this website fonts.google.com/icons. It has a list of all material icons, and you can also search for the icon that you need. So let's search for a user, people, or a person icon. So people, and we have this person icon. Alright. So let's use it. So icons dot person. So we have this beautiful looking list style over here, and let's make this bold. So instead of this text widget, we have a style, text style, and then font weight dot bold. Alright. So we have this awesome looking list style over here. And when this about me is clicked, I want to open an external URL. It can be my portfolio website or any website that I want. Alright. So for that we need a URL launcher package. So let's search for URL launcher in pop.dev. So search for URL launcher and you will get this plugin. So click at installing, copy the code, and paste it in the terminal. And wait for this to install. Once the plugin is installed, let's hard restart our app. So once hard restart is complete, let's import this URL launcher package. So import package, URL launcher, and then URL launcher dot. So now this package is imported. So let's move into the list style. So inside of this list style, let's use this onTap argument, create an anonymous function inside of it, and let's use this URL launcher here. So launch URL. And inside of this launch URL, let's use URI.parse, and then the URL will be inside of this parenthesis. Alright. So you can include your portfolio website or any website that you want. Don't forget the semicolon and save our code. Now if I click at this about me, then external browser will be launched with this URL. Alright. Now your emulator might not be able to display this website, but that's fine. It will work fine on Android and iOS devices. Alright. So if I close this, I'll be returned to the previous screen. So now let's create another list style. So this starts here, it ends here. So copy this, comma, and then paste it over here. So we have another list style here. Let's change this about me to contact me. And let's change this URL to mail to, colon, and then your email address. This mail to will launch an email client in our mobile with this address as a to address. Alright. So here we have this contact me. Let's change this icon from person to email. So now if I click at this contact me, my email client will open up. It can be Gmail, Outlook, or anything. Alright. So your default email client will open up. So that's it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll be working with displaying content conditionally in Flutter. So I'll see you at the next lesson. In this lesson we'll be working with conditional render in Flutter. We'll be understanding what conditional renders are and how they can be helpful in our app development. So let's get started. So this diagram will make it easier for you to understand what conditional renders are in Flutter. So whenever we are referring to the condition, we actually mean if else statement. Alright. So if something happens, do this, if not, do that. Alright. And we have already used this if else statement in our code, but this time it's a little different. We previously used if else statement inside a function, but this time we will be using it to conditionally render widgets. So if something happens, so this widget, if not, so another widget. Alright. So in simple terms, we are trying to use this if else statement in our widgets. So now let's see conditional rendering in action. So currently I have opened this main.dart file and I'll be modifying it so that you can understand this conditional rendering better. So this main screen class in material app home is responsible for rendering all these elements. Let me replace this with text for now and I'll be reverting it back later. Alright. So now we have this text widget over here. Let's try conditionally rendering this widget. So let me create a variable inside of this build function. So integer marks equals to 40. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. So if marks is more than or equal to 40, display pass text widget, or else display fail text widget. Alright. So there will be two text widget and I need to display them conditionally. So let me change this to pass for now. Alright. So let me change this marks to 10. And I'll still be getting this pass text widget, and this is because we are not checking any condition while rendering this text widget. Alright. So if this was only the logic part and not the rendering part, this is how we would have done it. So if the marks is more than or equals to 40, do something, and if not, do something else, and then we would print it in our debug console. Only this time we are trying to do this for our widgets. Alright. So let's remove this and let's try using if else in our widgets rendering. So if marks is more than equals to 40, so while working in rendering part, you cannot use this if over here. You should be only writing the condition inside of this parenthesis. Alright. So if this condition matches, then, so this question mark is a then. Alright. So if this condition matches, then display this, and this colon means otherwise. And here we will be printing another text widget. So fail. Alright. So if the condition matches, then display this text widget, otherwise display this text widget. So currently I have marks 10, so I am getting this fail widget. If I change this to 50, then I will be getting this pass text widget. Alright. So we are checking the condition for rendering the content. Alright. So this is called the conditional rendering in Flutter. So inside of this parenthesis, you can keep multiple or and conditions, and everything will be checked for rendering the content. Alright. Now if you don't want to render anything, if marks is less than 40, then you can replace this by null. It's like we are only using the if statement without else. So now if I change this marks to 10, then nothing will be rendered, because in else we are passing this null value. Alright. Now instead of using these two text widget, one for pass and one for fail, I can use this same text widget and display the contents inside of it differently. So let me remove this condition and this as well. So now let me save these changes so that I only have this one text widget over here. Alright. Now instead of using the condition to display the widget, I am using the condition to display a different string. So if marks is more than equals to 40, then display this pass string, otherwise display the failed string. So instead of rendering widgets conditionally, I am rendering string conditionally. Alright. So currently I have failed text in my text widget, and this is because marks is set to 10. Let's set it 50, and I can get this pass string in my text widget. Alright. So not only widget, you can also conditionally render the data inside of a widget. This time I am using the same widget but changing the data conditionally. Alright. Not only data, but we can also change the arguments or properties of a widget. So let me show you how. This time I will be trying to change the color of this text widget based on pass or fail status. Alright. So let's provide this style argument over here. Style equals to text style. And now I'll be trying to change this color argument conditionally. So if the status is pass, the color will be green, or else the color will be red. So let's copy this condition and paste it over here. So if this is true, then the value will be colors.green, and if not, else color will be red. So colors.red. Alright. So let me save this. So you can see the text widget color has been changed to green. Now if I fail this student, so let's say the marks is only 10, then the student has failed with the red text. Alright. So by using this if else statement, we can conditionally render widgets, the data inside of a widget, or property or arguments of a widget. Alright. So now we will see how we can apply this knowledge in our to-do app. So let me revert this main.dart file. So remove this integer and this comment, and then this text widget as well. So it starts here, ends here. Let's remove it, and let's use main screen class over here. And now our app has been reverted into its original form. So now let's remove all the items from our to-do list. So remove this and this as well. So now our screen looks empty because there are no to-do items. So it would be great if we could display the text widget over here that says there are no items on your list, right? So if there are items in to-do list, we'll be displaying those items, and if not, we'll be displaying a text widget that says there are no items on your list. So that's conditional rendering. So let's get on with it. So let's move into this main screen and then the to-do list builder class. So this build function is responsible for rendering the list view, right? So instead of this, we will be trying to conditionally render the widget. So this widget.todo list is a list of to-do items, right? So let's check if this list is empty. So let's copy this and let's create a condition over here. So let's start with this parenthesis. So if widget.todo list.is empty, so if the list is empty, we will be displaying a text widget, alright? And if not, we will be displaying this list view builder, alright? So let's set this text to no items on your to-do list. So here if there are no items, we will be getting this text widget. So let's try adding a new item over here. So if I add a new item, there are items in this list, so we will be getting this list view widget over here. But if I remove this or mark this as done, then I'll be getting this text widget, alright? So now let's wrap this text widget within center widget so that it's placed in the center. And the design looks great now. So now we have understood the concept of conditional rendering and we have rendered the widgets conditionally. So that's it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we will be working on further improving this app. So I'll see you at the next lesson. In this lesson we will be working with dismissible widget. Dismissible widgets allow us to dismiss the contents of our widgets with a simple swipe. This widget is fun to work with and provides a great user experience. So now let's start working on the dismissible widget. For that we need to get inside of this to-do list.dart, so Control P and then to-do list.dart. Now whenever you are trying to navigate into a file, Control P is the best and fastest way to reach that file, alright? So we want the ability to dismiss an item from the to-do list, so let's wrap this list style with a widget, and that widget is dismissible. So this dismissible widget has one required argument called key. So let's pass this key argument over here. So the value of this key argument should be a unique key, but instead of constructing a unique key, let's use this unique key that will automatically generate a unique key for the dismissible widget, alright? So let's save our code, and instantly we get the ability of dismissing the content using a swipe gesture. So we can dismiss the widget by moving it from start to end or end to start, alright? So now you might have noticed that even if I removed everything from my list view, I'm not getting the text widget that says no items on your list. So why is this happening? And this is because items are not actually removed from our to-do list. It seems like the dismissible widget is removing item from our to-do list, but it's not. To prove this, let me hot restart my app. Here you can see that I've got these items back that was previously removed by our dismissible widget. And this is because we are not actually removing the data from our list by using this remove at index. So this dismissible widget is only giving the fake impression of data being removed from our list. So for actually removing the data, we need to instruct this dismissible widget about what needs to be done when an item is dismissed. So for that we have an argument in this dismissible widget called onDismissed. And this onDismissed argument expects a function. So let's keep this anonymous function here. So this function or any other function, if it is passed in an argument of a widget, it is called a callback function, alright? And as this function does not have a name, I refer to it as an anonymous function. So it is an anonymous function, but it's actually called a callback function, alright? So this callback function has a callback value called direction that shows the direction of a swipe gesture. So let's see what we get from this callback value. So let's print direction over here and print another statement that says data removed, alright? So let me collapse this so we can see this debug console better. So now if I swipe this item from this direction, I can see that in my debug console there is a direction start to end. So the swipe from left to right means start to end. So if I swipe this item from right to left, I get this end to start over here. So by using this direction, I can get the swipe direction of a user. So I can write two logic over here, one for left to right and another for right to left, alright? So if direction equals to dismiss direction dot start to end, then we'll be printing it as mark as spam, and if not, then it is obviously the another direction, so delete, alright? So now let me remove this print statement. So now if I swipe this from left to right, I get this marked as spam, alright? Now if I move this from right to left, I get this delete printed in my debug console. So by detecting the direction of swipe, you can implement two functionalities over here. So now let's make this swipe gesture a little more beautiful. Let's provide background to it, alright? So for that we have an argument inside of this dismissible widget called background. And this time this background is not a background color, but it's actually an widget, alright? So let's pass a container widget over here. And let's color this container red. So now if I swipe this item, you can see this background widget at the background of this list tile, alright? So this is what this background argument does. It places a widget at the background of a draggable widget. So as this background expects a widget, why not build more widgets inside of it? So this container will have a child that will have a text that says mark as done. So now if I swipe this item, I get this mark as text as a background, alright? So instead of this mark as text widget, let's replace it with a check icon. And let's wrap this check icon with a row so that it's aligned at the left side. So now if I swipe this, I've got this check icon inside of my container, alright? So let's provide some padding to this icon. So now it's looking great. Now let's change this color to green with a lower intensity. And that is just beautiful. So here you can see that we can write two logic over here, one for left swipe and one for right swipe. So each swipe should be different, but when I swipe from either side, I get the same green background. So let's change that. Let's create another background for our right to left swipe. So we have this argument called secondary background, and this also expects a widget. So copy everything from this background and paste it in our secondary background. Alright. So let's change the color from green to red and then the icon from check to delete. So now I get different background for each swipe. So seems like this delete icon is at the left side, so let's bring it at the right side. So in row we have this main axis alignment equals to main axis alignment dot end. So it's kept at the right side. So now if I swipe this from right to left, I get this delete icon over here. So now the swipes are self-explanatory. This side marks as done and this side deletes. And we already have the condition for the logic, alright? And in our case, we only need this start to end swipe and not the end to start swipe. Alright? So we can restrict that by using this direction argument. So direction equals to dismiss direction dot start to end. Now by doing this, we only allow one swipe gesture from start to end. Alright? And you can change this direction according to your requirements. Alright? So now I can swipe it from left to right and not from right to left. And because there is only one direction, we don't need this secondary background and we don't need this condition as well. Because there will only be one swipe, right? So let's remove it and let's bring the actual list data removal logic over here. So let's copy this logic from our elevated button on press, and we don't want this navigator.pop because it is only for the bottom sheet. So let's copy other code and paste it over here. Alright. So now we have instructed this dismissible widget about what needs to be done when there is a swipe gesture and the item is removed. Alright. So let's remove it, this as well. And if I hot restart it, you can see that the data is actually removed. So let me remove this as well. And we have this no item text widget over here. So that's it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll be wrapping up this to-do app. So I'll see you at the next lesson. In this lesson we'll be wrapping up our to-do app. So in this lesson we'll be working on improving our app a little bit. So the first thing I want to improve is the user experience part. So whenever you are holding a phone, this part of your phone is easily accessible to you. So if we keep any buttons or interactive elements here, then they are easily accessible, right? But if the interactive elements or button are placed at the top, our hands need to move a little bit, right? It's not much of a deal, but it might be a little bit inconvenient. So as a developer, we need to make our app easier to use and convenient. It is a great part of user experience. So if you look into our app, there are two icons at the top. One for the drawer and one for the add to do. This drawer icon can be at the top because it is not frequently accessed. But we need to do something about this add to do icon. We need to make it easily accessible to our users. So keeping this plus icon around here somewhere might be a good solution. So for that we have an awesome widget in our scaffold. So let's have a look at it. So let's move into this main screen dot. So Control P and then main screen dot. Alright. So let me wrap my words first. Now let's move into the scaffold. And in scaffold we have an argument called floating action button. And this argument expects a widget, and we can pass any widgets inside of it, but we will be passing a special widget called floating action button itself. And this has an onPressed argument. which expects an anonymous function or a callback function which is an anonymous function for now. Alright, so let's save this, and you can see this floating action button right here. So if I click at it, I'll get an splash effect like an inkwell. So everything is built. Alright, so now let's place a add icon inside of this action button. So child, and let's keep a add icon here. So we have this icon over here which is aligned at the center of this floating action button. Alright, so now let's change the background color of this action button. So background color equals to colors.blue gray highest intensity. So now let's change the color of this icon. So now let's change the shape of this floating action button. Let's make it circular. So shape equals to circle border. Alright, so we have this nice looking floating action button right in our scaffold. So now let's trigger the bottom sheet from our floating action button. So copy this function from our plus icon inkwell and paste it in our onPressed. Now you can paste it over here like so, but as there are no arguments inside of it, let's paste it in a single line. Remove this anonymous function and let's keep the function in our onPressed. Alright, so now if I click at this floating action button, I'll get this bottom sheet. So now we have this floating button here. Let's remove this plus icon from our actions. Or you can remove this action argument because we do not need it now. So let's improve another thing for the convenience of our users. So when I click this plus icon and I write something over here. Now if I press enter on my keyboard or click at this submit button of this keyboard, then nothing happens. Data is not added to my to-do list. I always need to click this add button, although there is always a submit button in the keyboard, right? So let's fix it. So let's navigate into this add to-do dot. And now in the text field widget, we can pass an argument called onSubmitted. So we need to pass a callback function with a callback value over here, but this value doesn't matter. And inside of this onSubmitted, we will be copying the logic of onPressed of our elevated button. So copy and paste it over here. So let's save this. So now if I click at the submit of the keyboard, the data will be added to my to-do list. Alright. So congratulations for completing the development of this app. We learned a lot of things here. Text field, inkwell, gesture detector, list, bottom sheet, drawer, URL launcher, and so much more. So that's it for this section, and in the next section we will be learning about API and other important stuffs. So I'll see you there.